Good to see everyone. So, like he said, I'm Steve, and I've been doing digital video now for about 4 weeks. I think it's really neat. Actually, I'm a huge Final Cut Pro 10 user. I think it's awesome. I think it's the future of editing, and I just pretty much doubled down on it. And I'm not even looking at using any other editing system because I'm super fast with it. And one of the memes that's going out on the internet was, you can't share projects with Final Cut Pro users, which I set out to disprove right away. In fact, I gave myself a challenge. I said, oh, I want to do a live share with my business partner, Mark Spencer, who does all our motion training. He's up in, where is he? Marin County area. And we do a lot of collaborating, and we're going to, I have a Verizon iPhone, and I just upgraded. You can tether this phone. It's $20 extra a month. Like, all right, I'm going to try it. So yes, I set it up. So I'm tethering my iPhone to my MacBook Pro, and as you can see, I'm up here. I'm just, look at there, just, where is it? Steve's iPhone is right there, and it's, so you can actually be sitting on the beach and sharing with your iPhone and your laptop. Who the heck edits on their beach anyways? Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do this live with Skype. We're going to use two things. We use Skype, which I love, and the other thing we're going to use is DropBox. I'm sure that you all know what DropBox is, and you can set up shared folders, and it's just, Dropbox is like the best thing ever. I just wonder what happens when Apple decides to integrate that into their OS, but, well, whatever. So let's give, let's see, do we want to do a, let's see here. We're going to do which I'm going to just have him call it. The way we did it earlier is had him call me. And while he's calling me, I want to talk a little bit. Oh, look at that. Here we go. I think the green button. Hey, Mark.
Hey.
Say hi to everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, my God. This is so cool. Okay. And look, we got a picture. So Mark and I are going to demonstrate collaborative workflow. And what I'm going to do is bring Final Cut Pro forward. And before we actually get into collaborative workflow, I need to talk a little bit about the event library and the project library, because essentially those are the fundamental building blocks of Final Cut Pro 10. Unlike Final Cut 7, where you had a project, and that project had clips in it that pointed to every place all over these drives, and it was all path-based, Final Cut Pro is not like that. Final Cut Pro 10 is like self-referential. Every single event is a self-contained database. And what you need to understand about Final Cut Pro is these databases, called libraries, are stored in very specific locations. As long as the media for that library is in a specific place that Final Cut Pro expects to see it, you will never, ever have to worry about offline clips, ever. You'll never get, the dreaded, where's my media, and the white clips, which is the color of your skin when you have to deliver to ABC the next morning or what have you. That's all gone because again, self-referential. So what we have here is a number of events, and what you need to understand about events is these are all your media clips, okay, that I've imported into them. And all of these clips, I'm going to go ahead and choose this one called Clips for Quintessa Charles. Little background, Mark and I, we shot a little promo video up in Napa. We had like 7Ds, 5Ds, the red camera, and we just had a blast for a week shooting the harvest up there. And so we're going to be working with that footage. And I have an event here, you can see, Clips for Quintessa Charles. Now the thing I want to point out here's the key for collaboration. The key is this. The event on my computer has got to be exactly the same event on his computer. So on his computer right now in Mill Valley, he's got an event called Clips for Quintessa Charles with the same media in it. Okay, that's the key. The next thing is we have down here in the project library, this is essentially the work that we're doing. There's no sequences anymore. They're now called projects. And each one of these is an individual project of a different edit. Okay, so like this one is what we call the Quintessa Charles. So I'll just play a little bit of this so you can just kind of get a sense of what it is, and before we go ahead and modify it. So just play a little bit of it.
the key decisions along the winemaking process. You see this time and again. Plenty of science behind it, plenty of chemical analysis, etc. But ultimately, it's when it's picking.
Pick really fast.
It's me, my vineyard manager, our vineyard foreman, walking the vineyard, tasting the grapes, and saying, "Yeah, this part seems ripe. Let's pick it 2 days from now. This part needs to wait a while. Let's come back in a day or two and retaste and decide when that's ripe." I've got plenty of analysis for that, but within a week or more on either side, it's about the taste and the gut feel and just what's happening in the vineyard.
Okay, so that you get the general idea. So, first thing I would recommend, let's just assume for a minute that this was my edit and I wanted to share with Mark. Well, I'm going to recommend this step next, which is, well, if you want to keep that event intact, I would suggest duplicating it, and so then you work on a copy. So what I'm going to do is control-click, or right-click, right on the event. I'm going to choose Duplicate Project, and I'm going to get the Duplicate Project window. And it says Quintessa Charles. I'm just going to append it with something else. I know since we're working together, Mark and I, we came up with a cool pen. We'll just call this joint. Yeah, Quintessa Charles joint. And Spike Lee joint. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And what that does is it makes a copy. And you'll see that copy right here. Now it says Quintessa Charles joint. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the copy by simply double-clicking, and opens up into the timeline. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and close the title browser just so I have more space. Now, I'm going to make some modifications to this edit. What I have here is what's called a secondary storyline, and I'm scrubbing through, and okay, I've got the beaker shot, and I've got a couple of pickers, and then I have this dolly shot of the vine, and I just want to swap the order. So I'm going to do is grab that clip, and I'm going to just drag it over here and swap the order. So now I have that shot first, and let's make an obvious change to this. We want a kind of a 50s lab look. So I'm going to select the clip, and I'm going to hit Command-6, which will bring up the color board. And I'm going to go ahead to, just go ahead and desaturate it, just making an obvious change. Go into exposure, and I'm just going to give it a little bit, make it a little bit more contrasty. All right, just there we go. All right, so I've made essentially 3 changes. All right, now what I want to do is I want to get that project file over to Mr. Spencer, who's waiting there in his studio. So, and this is what I'm going to recommend you do next. You're going to have to quit Final Cut because, as you'll see momentarily, you won't be able to update the project databases while Final Cut Pro is still running. So I'm going to go ahead and quit Final Cut. All right. Now, I made a shortcut, what we call in Macland an alias, to my project database. And I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and we're going to go and say, there's the folder it is. And remember that joint project I made? Look, Final Cut made a folder for it. And guess what's inside it? There's the database file. It's current version.fcp project. By the way, every single project has that same file. That's the database. But Final Cut is nice because it sequesters all of those different databases by folders. So I'm going to select that folder, and now it gets fun. I'm going to go over to my rockin' DropBox, open that up, and look at this. I have a shared folder called Spencer, or if Luke was doing the demo, it would be Spencer. So I'm going to grab this Spencer, and I'm going to drag that project into the Spencer Dropbox. Now, Mark, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. So there it is. Did it show up in your Dropbox?
Not yet, but I just got a notification that it's there. Came forward, and I see it in my Dropbox. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it on that same. I have a very similar folder that you do for a duplicate of my project, and I'm just going to replace what I currently have in there with what you just gave me. So I have a separate copy of this project, and I did that, and now I'm launching Final Cut Pro. And like you just said, I need to make sure that I'm swapping out that project when Final Cut Pro is not running. If Final Cut Pro were running, it would tell me you can't do this because the file's in use.
So right at this moment, he's feverishly working on changing the edit. right? He's doing whatever he's doing to it, okay? And I mean, the slowest part of the process really is quitting Final Cut Pro and then relaunching it. And that's, you know, it's a small price to pay, really. But he's making his changes, and when he's done, he's going to drop that file back into this Dropbox, and then I'm going to essentially take that file, which will show up here in short order, and I'm going to actually drag it into this folder. Okay, now I could have option drug it and made a copy, but I actually drug the file right out of there, which is actually not a good idea to do when Final Cut Pro is running, but which is why I recommend quitting Final Cut Pro. So while he's doing that, a couple of things I should point out about sharing, just kind of in general. This works great. Those project files are very, very small. In fact, if you look here, this one is 1.2 megabytes. Now, Larry Jordan asked me a question that was valid at the break. Well, what if my project had a lot of render files in it? Well, you'll notice that the project library stores the render files. So if I wanted to, I could bundle up the render file folder and then put that on Dropbox if it was reasonable. But mostly what I recommend is just forget the render files. Just give them the project, and then when it's opened, you just simply render it. Render them yourself. I think it's much better than having to deal with a huge render, unless, of course, it's this big composite green screen that you have to deal with. But just keep it simple. One other thing I want to point out is people email me questions about Final Cut 10, and one of the questions was, well, can't you do the same thing with XML? Why are you sharing the project files? Well, here's a good reason for that. If you have certain third-party plugins applied to clips, let's just say like Delirium or some plugin, when you use XML, sometimes the third-party plugin doesn't translate. And it's better to use the project file because everything translates. Because the project file is this complete database that carries all the information with it, including what projects. Oh, it looks like I was informed that, look, Dropbox, there's my current project. Okay, so that's your project, right, Mark? It's all been...
That's it.
So great. So all I should have to do is go into the Quintessa Charles joint project, drag that back into there, and one more step, which would be going down to Final Cut Pro 10 and launching. Do you see what I said? This is the part that takes a long time. It's so funny. Yes. It's got a project header. Yes. Really good question. The question was, does he have to have the same plugins? And our system should be parity. So if he has a certain plugin on his, I should have that plugin. Okay. It just so happens that both of our systems have the same. You know that content that downloads with Final Cut Pro 10, the ancillary content, all of the templates, the titles. That's the same. We're not using any outlandish plugin or anything. We're just using what's built in. Okay.
Yeah, I used a title from the titles browser that anybody who's Final Cut Pro will have.
There you go. Now what change did he make? Oh, let's see. Oh, looks like he added a title. Did you add anything else? No, he added a title. So look, this is his project, and now I'm skimming over the title, and so there it is. Now it's /, and then so. It works really, really good, the sharing over there. Thank you. So Mark, why don't you stay on the line in case I can't answer a question? Okay, yes. Here's why. The question is, why is this one unrendered? Let's go back to the project library for a moment, because that's a really good question. Okay, remember, this was the starting project, was it not? And if I look at it, if I open it up, I had the foresight to know I should probably render it so it won't drop frames during my demo, right? So no orange bars. So I've got place. So, but what happens is, and this is what I want you to see, if I control-click and choose duplicate, this is important, you'll notice there is a checkbox down here to include render files. And I earlier mentioned why send render files. I'm not interested in that, so I chose not to do that option. That's why that second project has all the orange bars across. Although it wouldn't have orange bars if I sat here long enough because of the background rendering, right? Which can be turned off, by the way. All right, excellent question. You can't put two projects in the same project library. It can only be one. Yeah, because they have the same names. Remember I said earlier that all the projects... Okay, well, let's clarify. The question is, what about these project names? Look, see the name says current version.fcp project. See that? If I go into this one, which is a totally different project, has the same name. If I go in this one, you can't name your project files. They all have the same name. They're databases. That's all they are. Okay, they're again, like I mentioned, they're sequestered by these folders. Final Cut Pro made these folders to keep them from each other, from fighting. Right. So, yes.
How did you get your events to be exactly the same?
I was going to show you that. Should I show you that?
Sure.
Okay. Here's I would what I'm going to show you what not to do first, which would be good, right? Okay. So I'm going to go to the Finder. And I just want to show you where all this stuff lives. I'm working off my boot drive, but if I go to my movies folder, you'll see that those two folders, there's your two libraries, your Final Cut events and your projects. Okay, two separate databases. Your events, remember I said, stores all of your media, and you'll find the media in the original medias folder. Okay, so that's the key. Final Cut projects, you'll find the projects. Okay, what you don't want to do is open an event, and now I should have plugged in an extra drive, but never mind. Pretend there was an extra drive, another drive connected to my MacBook Pro. One thing is you could drag this folder and drag this entire folder and drop it into the same Final Cut Events folder in the other drive, and then launch Final Cut Pro. Here's the problem when doing that. When you do that, it creates an ID conflict. You shouldn't be doing it in the Finder because Final Cut Pro will come up and say, wait a minute, you have two events with the exact same ID. My head's going to explode. I don't know what to do with it. So here's what I'm telling you. If you want to copy an event to another drive, what you really need to do, I should probably show you that. Oh, okay. Well, I was going to show them disk images really quick because this is pretty cool. Do we have time for this, or am I running out of time? This is, okay, a few more minutes? Okay. All right. I don't know, is this boring stuff? Okay. All right. Just checking. Okay, so this is one utility you have to know about. This is something I wrote about right when this is pretty much the coolest thing about Final Cut Pro 10. It's amazing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new blank disk image. And I'm going to call this Steve drive. Okay, it doesn't matter what you want to call it, something, right? And I'm going to call this Steve drive. Now, here's the thing. You can give it a custom size. I'm going to go into custom. I'm going to say, all right, I want this to be let's say I want to have this to be a 10 gigabyte footprint. Now, it's important here. You're essentially going to create a blank disk drive that has a predetermined space amount. That doesn't mean it's going to take up that much, but I need to have that expandability. What I'm going to do is essentially make a virtual disk that I can import my projects and media into. And it starts out with a small footprint, and it grows as I need it. You'll see this in a second. This is pretty cool. So I'm going to go down here under Image Format. I'm going to choose Sparse Disk Image, and I'm going to save it on the desktop. Create. The neat thing about a sparse image is it formats super, super, super fast. Now, here's the great thing about this, is that you go, look what happened. It actually showed up as a drive in Final Cut Pro's event library. And if I go to the desktop, you'll see that there is that drive, that sparse image. And what I'm going to do is copy. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to take this Quintessa Charles, and I am going to grab that event, and I'm going to drag it to my sparse image. And it says, I'm going to leave the word copy on it for now. Notice I'm targeting that sparse image, and I'm going to click OK. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to take that exact event and copy it to that disk image. I can do the same thing for event line. In fact, you can see here that what's happening on the dashboard. It's telling me it's copying all that media from OneDrive into my sparse disk image. Okay, bear with me here because this is just really, really important. So it's copying, and now I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my project library, okay, which actually library itself, and you'll notice that same sparse image shows up here. So I could take that whole, I could just take, let's see, I'm going to grab this joint project, doesn't matter which one. I'm going to drag that onto here. Do I want to, yeah, it says duplicate project, okay. Okay. Now this is what I want you to see. I'm going to go back out to the Finder. And I want you to look what's actually on the drive. Look what's on that disk drive. It created a Final Cut Events folder and a Final Cut Projects folder. And all my media, everything I need for this is self-contained now on this disk image. This is where it gets really amazing. All I need to do now is eject this drive. Well, it won't let me eject it while Final Cut's running. But see that disk image? I can hand anybody in this room that disk image. You can put it on and you can double click. It'll open this little icon and it will show up in Final Cut Pro exactly what the changes I made to it. You can then make the changes. Those changes will be stored to that database on that disk image. You can hand the disk image back to me. You can essentially pass around disk images all day long because really what that is, it's a self-contained virtual disk that stores every change that you make on any project in any event database in Final Cut Pro 10. It's a great way of working. In fact, I have several people in like Las Vegas, big production. This is how they're working. They're making virtual disks, and it's a great way to sequester one client's stuff away from another client. This client has this disk image, that client has that disk image. I don't want that client to see, I don't want Coke to see the Pepsi spot we're working on, so I'm not going to have that disk image mounted. See? Yes. Yes, you can also password protect them, which is really important. So. And then I could put, I don't know, let's see. Yes, you could put it in a drop. Mark, are you still there?
I'm still here.
All right, before I do that, how big is this? It's 503. Well, tethering gives me 2 gigabytes per month. That just wiped out 1/4 of my bandwidth for the month, so I don't think so. But yes, you could put the whole disk image up there and it would work. Mr. Cantor.
Since the database files all have the same name.
Yes.
That means the name of the event and the name of the project are dictated by the parent folder name.
Yes.
Could you change? Could your collaborator change the name of the parent folder of either the project or the event, but as long as the database file?
Correct. The question is, can you change it? And what I would recommend, Steve, is not doing it at the Finder. Change the name of the event in Final Cut Pro. And then by doing that, it will change the name of the folder on the Finder.
But like, does Mark have to have his project have the exact same name and the folder structure is yours and you've got that database?
He had to have the exact same folder structure, correct. That's
Yeah, but I don't have the same name. Steve called his joint. Mine's got a different name.
Joint.
My project name and therefore my folder name for this particular project that we just did this demo on has a different name than his.
Steve, let's assume he has nothing. Can you send him everything to work with?
I could send him a disk image with everything on it that he needs, everything, and he's ready to go. And then he could send that disk image back or to someone else, and I can keep working. I'm running out of time. Mike, I can feel the itchiness of Mike, but real quick here. This is what Mark and I do. I mean, literally every day we work on training. We've got 17 hours of motion training. We've got Final Cut training. We've got DaVinci Resolve. We're working on DaVinci Resolve 9. We have Autodesk hired us to create all their smoke training, and it'll come out in September. We're very, very busy. We have a plugin called Callouts, which allows you to put magnifiers and, arrows, and you want to call attention to something, like you see in the sports. We have all that up there. Here's what I'm going to do. If you guys are interested in the training, I'll just give you a code. If you want anything up there, you use this code. Here it is. Ripple, is it Ripple Text? RIPPLETEXT. I have a special running right now. If you,
yes.
you can, right? Yeah, Ripple
Yes,
text.
no spaces.
No spaces, Ripple text. It'll give you 20% off anything on the site. I mean, everything but the callouts. If you're interested in the callouts, you'll have to email Mark and I because we have a different code for that. Because callouts is actually delivered through Noise Industries, which makes the FX Factory plugin. So the plugin is delivered through FX Factory. So, also one last thing, Mark and I produce a podcast every single week on Final Cut. I mean, we're now up to our 167th episode. Jesus. And I know, 167th. In fact, if you want to, you don't even need to write anything because what I covered tonight with sharing, I just covered in the episode, which was on 6/12. And you can see them on our site or you can on Facebook, but basically.
Bandwidth for this podcast.
This is actually playing off my phone. I just like that. That's so cool. Edit. Okay, just keep it simple. Notice it's associating it with that event. Like, everything I just did tonight is codified in this. So I did my obligatory little advertisement. So you can check out our MacBreak Studios, and you can email. I actually answer email. All right. So anyway, I'll be here. I'm not going to run out. If you have some burning questions, be happy to answer them. I want to thank Mark for joining us. Mark Spencer, thanks for joining us from...
Everybody, thank Mark.
Thanks, you guys.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
All right, you can sign me off now, buddy.
Okay.
right, man.
Thanks,
Take care.
everybody. Thanks, Steve Martin.
Thank you.